Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential Podcast. I'm MLive sports writer Kahn, joined by two of my colleagues.
Ryan Zuke.
Aaron McMann, Michigan football beat writer.
Guys, all of Michigan's sports are now done. It is a sad time. It is why I'm wearing this watch with a baseball glove strap, because baseball is now all we have, the professional variety. I'm a Mets fan.
Are you
guys?
Still got the Mets.
Are you guys Tigers fans?
My fandom is gone.
Nominally Tigers fans.
I grew up a Tigers fan.
Grew up a Tigers fan, yes.
Okay.
Honestly, I haven't watched a single game all season long. So
They're exciting this year, though. They got some young.
So I've heard, but to me, there's no reason to watch. And after I covered them for a year or two, so it's like one of those things where it's like, it's almost like a job to watch them nowadays. So I don't watch much baseball.
That's definitely how I feel with the Mets. It's a job, and job that is not fun at all.
Yes.
Nothing like my actual job. So yeah, this weekend, what were you guys up to? Were you?
I worked this weekend. I was out at Travis Point Country Club in Ann Arbor for a couple of days covering the Volva Championship, LPGA Volva Championship.
Who won?
Minjee Lee of Australia, her fourth career victory, second this year. So she's played this course pretty well. She finished tied for second last year and then won it this year. Made a 3-foot birdie putt on 18 to clinch it. So one by one stroke. I would have missed it for sure.
I was going to say, you are an avid golfer. Have you played this course before?
Yeah, I played it twice for the media day, both days. So did not fare as well as the pros did.
Shocker.
I did have a couple birdies, but other than that, I had a lot more bogeys than they had this week.
I use a 2-wood off the tee, and it's an actual wood.
Do you have? Can we watch?
I hit like. Can
we see video of you hitting this club?
I swing very hard, and it's a nice low liner. Plays well in windy conditions, but you seem like a better golfer than me.
I got a big weekend this weekend coming up with 40 of my buddies. We got a big tournament in Gaylord this weekend. So hopefully can get up to the driving range one more time before then, and 90 holes in 3 days.
Wow! I just played 54 holes of miniature golf this weekend. My younger brother is in town.
I'm sure your back's killing you right now.
We went to Putters in Ypsilanti. I don't know. They sent me a coupon in the mail, so I went. They had a batting cage as well. I set the Pop-A-Shot record in the arcade. Overall,
that is something to be proud of.
Overall, a good day. Aaron, can you
didn't do
top
much?
That?
No, I sat on my butt, drank some beer, laid by the pool. Did go to Jordan Lewis, the former Michigan defensive back, had a camp Sunday in Detroit. Wandered down there for a few hours and kind of see what I could see. There was a couple of Michigan guys over there: Khalil Hudson, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Who else was there? Josh Uche. I'm missing one. Lavert Hill. Delano Hill was there helping Jordan with the camp. So it was a good time. A lot of kids from Detroit, not only Detroit but the whole area. Cass Tech coach Tom Wilcher was there, but it was an invite-only camp. They invited it was a DB versus wide receivers in theory. That's what it was called. They did invite a handful of quarterbacks. But yeah, it was a good time. It was hot. It was 90, 95.
I was baking in the sun. Man.
Yeah.
Yes, it is still warm here, and we're thinking about this construction crew that's clearly, well, maybe they're not outside. They seem to be directly under our feet, using jackhammers and other loud equipment, to strengthen the foundation of not just this building, but this podcast as well.
Luckily, we have a great cameraman to hopefully drown out some of that sound.
Sure. Now, as I said at the beginning, the reason we have no sports left is because the Michigan baseball team was eliminated.
They were eliminated
from
the Big Ten tournament and lost 2 of their first 3 games and needed a miracle to get an at-large bid into the NCAAs, and that was not the case yesterday when the field of 64 was announced.
Now they're sort of, hit or miss with getting into the tournament over the last, decade or so.
They made it last year. Had a 40-win season for the first time since 2008, and they lost 15 players from last year, though, like 11 MLB draft picks. So they weren't really expected to be able to replace all those players and be as dominant. But they had a 20-game win streak this year. Whenever when you go on a long win streak like that in college baseball, you think, all right, probably have a good chance at playing in the postseason, but they started off 4-11 and then ended 7-9. So in between that win streak, they had some struggles for sure.
Yeah, the top players? Are they returning? Will they?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a bunch of their top players this year were freshmen. They brought in their best recruiting class ever in the Big Ten history this year, and a lot of them performed well. First baseman Jesse Franklin led the team with 10 home runs and 47 RBIs. Local kid Jordan Nwogu wasn't really penciled in to be a starter at the beginning of the year. Turned it on and batted 350 with 6 home runs this year. And then a couple of key pitchers, Ben Jorgani, Jack Criswell, and Angelo Smith, all key pitchers this year, all will be back for their sophomore season. So there's a lot to like moving forward, but kind of a frustrating end to the year for them. I mean, because they were penciled in or projected to be a tournament team before this little skid here at the end.
Right. I don't know how you guys feel about this, but me with baseball, it's such a long season. I try not to judge it based on the postseason too much. You know, basketball, especially college basketball, that's kind of how everything's judged. Football, we kind of talked about this last week or maybe 2 weeks ago with the rivalry. You kind of want to win those games, and the playoff has created maybe a new atmosphere. But baseball is such a long season; it can end, with just a couple bad games, run into a good pitcher or whatever. So I don't know. I think
the way they lost on their second game, they beat Iowa through a one-hitter against Iowa, even though their starter left after an inning in the third because of an injury, and they had a bunch of relievers come in and combine for a one-hitter. And then they come back against Purdue, 4-4 going into the ninth inning, 1 out, and then a wild pitch on ball 4 gets by the Michigan catcher. Purdue runner gets to second base, looks back in, or looks over to third base. Third base coach is like, let's go, let's go, let's go. There's nobody covering third, so he walks or runs over to third base, and just like that, a walk turns into a die on third base with 1 out. And then they intentionally walk the next 2 guys, load the bases, and then bring the infield in. And sure enough, the game-winning single is a slow chopper up the middle, which, if they were playing at the normal depth, might have been an easy ground-out double play. They're out of the inning. Maybe things are different. But, mental mistake, and at the worst time, might have cost them. And then they lose to, of course, Ohio State. Not as big of a rival in baseball, but, a tough way to lose or end your season against. Lost to the Buckeyes.
Pitching is always key in those tournaments, especially it's double elimination or whatever. Baseball. If you have, and we talked about this I think last week with softball, but if you have 1 or 2 dominant pitchers, you can go far. That's what usually wins those things.
Yeah, they had a good pitching staff this year, and gave up only 1 run in the first game and then 5 the next 2. Not ideal, but those winnable games right there.
Sure.
2 1-run games and a 2-run game, and.
So baseball is now done, but football has, summer workouts going on right now. I guess what is new, or what will we be looking for on the football front?
Yeah, not a ton. They do start summer conditioning today. We spoke with several of the players over the weekend, and they said they were looking forward to it. A lot of them have been sitting around all month after they got back from France and playing video games, and I think Chris Evans said he was playing Fortnite, and they were watching movies, and some of them had class.
What is this Fortnite? Have you guys played that? I have not played it yet, and yet everyone,
all the kids are doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, I think I may have written a story about it during the NCAA tournament with some of the Michigan players doing it. I got out of the game. Sega Dreamcast was the last system I played.
And
NBA
2K was here for me.
And literally 2K, not like the franchise, the 2000 version of the game. That was it for me. So
it's been a while for me too. But they apparently play it. I know they were arguing over whether who was the better Fortnite player. I think Chris Evans said that I think Josh Uche was the best, but Khalid Hudson made sure to chime in and said he was the best Madden player. So they're clearly getting their video game workouts in, taking classes, they're kind of hanging around. But again, workouts began I guess today. Now they're allowed 8 hours a week, and then it goes for 8 weeks. So they're only allowed to be with the strength and conditioning staff. So it's Ben Herbert and his 4 assistants. Technically,
new staff.
Correct. Yeah. It's brand new staff. Ben Herbert came in. He was part of the last regime in Arkansas that was fired and let go. Jim Harbaugh made a switch there in late December, early January, right around the bowl time. Made the decision to hire Herbert. Brought him on. He hired 4 assistants. We got a full-time dietitian now on staff. So they totally overhauled the whole strength and conditioning side. Herbert's come in and done things, I guess, a little bit differently. They're being more competitive. Now, obviously, we haven't been let in to see things, but players have told us they've really emphasized putting weight on. They're putting more. They're trying to put more muscle mass on. If folks don't remember this, but after Michigan lost the Ohio State game last November in the post-game press conference, Jim Harbaugh made an emphasis, and this kind of came out of nowhere. We hadn't heard it up to that point from him, but he made it. He mentioned 2 or 3 times in the press conference that his team needed to get stronger. That was something he noticed. Apparently, he felt like Ohio State was overpowered them. So I guess that went into this decision. But anyway, so they will spend most of this summer with Herbert and the staff. The Michigan coaching staff is technically not allowed to lead or be in the room or be involved with any of this, and so it's totally, until the beginning of training camp, it's kind of off-season voluntary workouts.
I think that's an interesting sort of behind-the-scenes story that many fans don't think about or know about. I know under Lloyd Carr, they had, I think a staff that was in place for a long time that definitely emphasized it both in recruiting and then in the weight room, just getting big. Those Michigan teams were huge. Then with Rich Rod, I believe Mike Barwis came in and was kind of a different philosophy of, again, they recruited more speed and agility, and we want, we want that quick twitch and all that. And then you had a different staff for, I'm not sure how many years, with Harbaugh here before, but now with Herbert, is that how you pronounce it? Coming in, it seems like, again, maybe more towards the bulk, or you never want to lose that.
It seems like it's a combination of both, because when we talked to players in the spring, they all emphasized getting bigger, but at the same token, they said they were still focused on speed too. So it's a little bit of both. I think it takes time. First, I think you've got to build yourself up and gain the weight, and then maybe this summer, and this is me speculating, I don't know, but maybe this summer they emphasize the speed. I don't know, but that seems to be those 2 things they were emphasizing in spring and in winter conditioning. So we'll see where they come out of in the summer. They've got 8 weeks. Obviously this is a good time for guys to get in shape. This is also a good time to see, especially the younger guys, who wants it more, who's ready to grow and develop. Some of these early signees that are here, they've got 3 of them that came on in the spring, but it's a good opportunity for them to get bigger and be ready for the college game that so many freshmen just aren't physically able to, or ready to do.
Is there anything new with the most important position on the field, quarterback?
Yes and no. It's last week, Harbaugh went on his weekly podcast with his dad and JT Rogan. They were discussing the quarterback situation again. It was brief, but he also said some interesting stuff, I thought, about Dylan McCaffrey, the redshirt freshman who redshirted last year as a true freshman. This is something that Harbaugh's brought up now twice. Ironically, both instances were on his podcast. I can remember early in the spring, he told a story, I think it was a couple practices in, where McCaffrey led the offense down the field, a 70-yard touchdown drive that I guess Harbaugh was so impressed with that he brought up unsolicited on the podcast. Then again last week on his podcast again, he brings up the quarterback situation. He says, I'll quote him here, it says Shea, Brandon Peters, Dylan McCaffrey. And then he turns to his dad and says, Dad, is anyone more improved than Dylan McCaffrey? I don't think so. And his dad chimes in. He says he's really understanding the job at quarterback and what he needs to do. It seems like they like the strides Dylan McCaffrey has made. Whether or not, and I wrote this last week on MLive.com, but whether or not this is a smoke screen is kind of up for debate. I think the 2 quarterbacks we've heard the most about going back to spring practice have been the two youngest guys, Dylan McCaffrey and true freshman Joe Milton, one of those early enrollees. Harbaugh spoke glowingly about both in different instances and about different cases, but at the same token, we haven't heard as much about Shea Patterson, who clearly wasn't ruled eligible until the end of spring, and then Brandon Peters, who was, again, he got the most reps and started games last year. So to me, it's up for debate, or whether you can read into this what you want. Clearly, they're happy with the progress McCaffrey's making, but again, we haven't seen anything. We haven't been led to practice, so I have no visible knowledge of this. I'm going off of at this point, we're going off of what Jim Harbaugh and the coaching staff says.
Wouldn't that be something if the Michigan takes the field against Notre Dame and it's McCaffrey leading the team out onto the field?
Yeah, to me, I still think it's a stretch. But again, Harbaugh hasn't ruled anyone a favorite. He hasn't ruled anyone above anyone else at this point. I suspect he'll continue to do that at least at the beginning of fall camp, once August rolls around. And then I think you're going to start seeing guys drop off. I think Milton, I think he's going to need a year under his belt. I mean, he's a freshman. They are impressed with his arm strength. He was bragging about how he could throw, I think, 70 yards in practice. So it's up for debate. Like I said, it's good to hear that about McCaffrey because this is one of the guys on the depth chart who we haven't seen at all. We've heard a lot about Don Brown, the defensive coordinator, raved about him last year as the quarterback of the scout team. They said he did a really good job preparing and giving their defense different looks. But again, we haven't seen him play at all. So we're going off what we're hearing and not what we're seeing.
I like how you mentioned another podcast as well. We're not petty here.
No.
Confidential. If there's news out there on a different source,
Absolutely.
we're going to mention it.
Absolutely. So it's out there. And I made a point to listen to Harbaugh's podcasts every week. Some of them I think are more interesting than others. But every now and then, you get some news out of it, and it's always interesting the quarterback situation because that's the one spot everyone wants to hear, wants to know about. So whether I think I wrote the headline, whether McCaffrey is a dark horse or not candidate, I don't know. But it's certainly, to me, it's come across that the coaching staff likes him. They're happy with him.
And Harbaugh returns the favor with our podcast, as far as we know. He hasn't said otherwise.
No, he hasn't. No. He has not.
Now you've got these, redshirt freshman quarterback, true freshman quarterback, but they're looking ahead to the future as well. By offering another, I think the second offer Michigan has extended to someone who is not yet in high school.
So I'm going to go back here. I did some research, some spotty crack research before we got on the podcast. They offered an 8th grader back in March, a quarterback by the name of Tyler Simpson. He's from Martin, Tennessee. His dad, Jason, is actually the head coach in the University of Tennessee, Martin. Ironically, and I think we'll get into this in a minute, but Michigan's satellite camp schedule is beginning later this week. Mm-hmm. One of the stops is at UT Martin.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's all in line or not. But anyway, so cut the story short, they offered Tyler Simpson in March. He was an 8th grader. Michigan just offered their second 8th grader on Friday. Reportedly, Tyler Martin.
Very confusing. The Tylers and then the Martin.
You've got two Tylers, and you got a Martin, Tennessee, and you got the other Tyler's last name is Martin. So he's from this Tyler Martin is from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. He's a 6'3", apparently 6'3", 227-pound 8th grader. Plays tight end and linebacker. They said he led his team in his 8th grade middle school team.
I know he could be. I played with a future NFL player, and he on 8th grade was on the JV.
I've heard of that. So whatever team he was on, and I did some crack research before. He had he led the team with 100 tackles. So he's clearly he's clearly someone who's on the radar. Yeah. Now we hear about this every now and then, not just Michigan with other college programs. I think Lane Kiffin's has done the same thing, and other major programs have extended scholarship offers to 8th graders. There's plenty of time left. They're likely going to get other offers.
Right. So when you offer to a junior and he verbally commit, it doesn't mean all that much.
Right.
At this stage, it really means
right. I think
not much at all. No one is I think, bound to stick with this.
No.
It's not a... No. Yeah, so
I think it's a case of just the Michigan coaching staff liking what they see, and they're trying to get out in front of everyone else.
Right.
Now, whether that works, check back in 3 years.
Right, there's no harm with it. Sure. I believe a hockey player was just
who's actually committed at 14 years old. Okay. Yeah, so the younger brother of Quinn Hughes, Michigan defenseman right now, who will be a top 10 pick in the upcoming NHL draft. His youngest brother, not younger brother Jack, who's expected to be the #1 overall pick in 2019, but his youngest brother Luke Hughes just announced his commitment last week that he will be attending playing at Michigan. But like you said, it's a long way to go.
Yeah. Right. Just people are clear. That does not mean that, come college time, he has to come to Michigan by any means.
Right.
He can't even sign a letter of intent, I wouldn't think, for several years, is my understanding. So. But there's no real harm. For Michigan's perspective, they get their name out,
and they
to make the kid know that they're interested.
To put things in perspective, they throw out hundreds of offers every recruiting calendar, every recruiting year. A lot of kids, collect these offers, and it's likely that these kids, Tyler Simpson and Tyler Martin, both get offers from several other big schools. So it's, it's again, like I said, it's them trying to get out in front of everyone. I'm sure the other big schools will follow in the next year or two. Especially if these kids show development and show what Michigan thinks they have in him. They could pan out to be a 4 or 5 star recruit. In that case, you got offers coming from every other school. So then it comes down to a fit, and relationships. And that's why I think this also goes back to Michigan's, I think, decision too. They're trying to build a relationship early on with these kids and their parents. Now, an eighth grader, I think it's a little difficult to build a relationship with. I mean, I think just being present helps. But again, you see that Tyler Simpson, his father, Jason, is the head coach at the University of Tennessee Martin. That goes a long way, with his father, I'm sure, going forward. Because who knows if his father will be the head coach there in 4 or 5 years? Maybe he moves up. Maybe, who knows? So it's Michigan just kind of getting their face up front, and as the case with the hockey too. They're trying to jump everyone else in line, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
The basketball team, men's basketball team, has offered a junior in high school, so a little more appropriate offer. Jalen Wilson is his name. He will announce tomorrow, so Wednesday. At least that's the date he set on the Twitters to announce his decision. Michigan is a finalist. There's 5 others in the mix there. Marquette, UCLA. Drawing a blank on some of the others, but there's some top. Other very good programs in the mix, but he's from Texas. Okay, Baylor is another one. Oklahoma State is another. I think I've hit on maybe all of them.
If I'm from Texas, I'm looking at that. And again, he's got plenty of other decisions to make, and there's so many other variables factoring into this. But if I'm a high school kid and I'm getting these offers from my schools, I'm looking at Michigan. Okay, I mean they've got the history and everything else, but UCLA, it's like, do I leave the warm weather to go to the cold weather? Do I go up north when I could go out west to California? I don't know. For me, it's obviously he's got plenty of other factors.
Right, and a big one for him is player development and getting in the NBA. Not that some of those other schools haven't, especially UCLA, but he looks at Michigan. He likes what they've done with guys outside the top 100, and he's sitting there in the top 40. DJ Wilson, especially a forward, somewhat similar player, and now Mo Wagner's about to get drafted. So he likes what he's seen from big men. He's 6'8", 215, his coach told me. So the numbers you see on the recruiting websites that say 6'6", 185 are a little outdated.
Yeah, they're usually
but yeah, he's kind of a typical B-line player in that despite his size, he is very skilled. He can shoot threes, handle the ball. I talked to his coach just this morning, his high school coach, and he told me they don't even need a press break anymore since they've had him, because they just give him the ball, and who's ever guarding him, the player would be too slow of that size to keep up, and he can see over the defense, and basically a one-man press break.
Those are nice to have.
Yeah, I mean, he says when he drives to the hoop, he's kind of a LeBron-like in high school. And again, the shooting. So he'll announce tomorrow. That would be...
Are you going to be tweeting the decision at Andrew Kahn?
I will be covering it at MLive.com/Wolverines. There's already a story up about him. If he comes to Michigan, there will be another. If he doesn't, he will not. We will not cover him ever again. Good luck, but good luck to him. So we'll see. It would be the first commitment in the 2019 class. Michigan has 4 or 5 other offers that we know of out there. The coaching staff, much like I'm sure in your other sports, does not comment on offers. Nope. But these kids all tweet it now, which is just so funny to me. I can just imagine Beeline, just wishing he could go back to the era before social media where, he'd offer a kid and it would be kind of a secret, because now all other coaches can say, oh, that's who I'm going up against, or well, John Beeline is interested. Maybe I should be take a look at him. So that's just a side note, but
2018.
But yeah, there are
hashtag.
There are several other kids out there in that class. As things stand right now, there are only it's only one spot available for both this year and next year, one scholarship. But that's assuming that everyone maxes out their eligibility at Michigan, which would be Charles Matthews would be one of them. So his name is still in the running for the NBA draft.
Deadline coming up.
The deadline is tomorrow.
Okay.
So Michigan it could be a big day for Michigan tomorrow. They could sign a member of the next class and bring back their best returning player. Or Matthews could keep his name in there. Wilson could go elsewhere, and they kind of reassess things. But I guess my point is, even if Matthews comes back for next season, it would seem unlikely he would stay again for his redshirt senior year, his 5th year of college. So that would open up another spot, and then you've got transfers, you've got other kids potentially going pro by that point. I mean, Jordan Poole, Isaiah Livers, both had very good freshman seasons. Who knows what's in store for them down the road? So that's what Michigan is looking at. But we'll know tomorrow on Matthews one way or the other. It's been pretty quiet. He's had workouts with various NBA teams, but I found that most, looking back, guys do not really announce one way or the other until really these final couple days.
Right,
so I wouldn't read into it one way or the other.
I think they're just trying to maximize the time they're given.
Exactly.
It
makes sense. Yeah. This could be on a different podcast episode, but I'd be an advocate of more of a baseball or hockey model where why not let them get drafted, see where they go. So they're not making such a risk of, am I going to get drafted? But that's not the rule right now. So the NCAA deadline is May 30th. So he'll have to see whether he comes back. My research showed guys who don't get invited to the combine, and Matthews was not invited, typically return to school. Those select few that have stayed in the draft, usually there's other circumstances. A coach has left, or they were clearly unhappy, or they were suspended, maybe even. None of that applies to Matthews. And again, those players were eventually not drafted. So we'll see. Matthews put out a tweet recently. You've got to bet on yourself or something like that.
Sure.
But what does that mean? That could mean that he's going to come back to Michigan, and he's going to and he's going to say, look, I can improve my stock, or I think I'm ready now, and I'm ready to make that jump. So we'll find out by next episode of Wolverine Confidential. We'll be able to give you an answer one way or the other. But for Aaron and Ryan, I am Andrew. Thanks for listening to the Wolverine Confidential podcast.